Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we take all the source material you provide of us, the articles, the research notes, even the philosophical texts, and we really just go right to the core.
Right to the heart of it.
The goal is to give you that critical knowledge, the context you absolutely need, and to do it fast.
And today we are undertaking a very unique deep dive. I mean, this one sits squarely at the intersection of hard science, ancient history, and some really deep metaphysical philosophy.
It's a perfect fit for a focus here. I mean, this is the FadedTech podcast, right? We're
Yes.
always exploring that possibility of advanced lost intelligence systems.
And this topic is central to that entire idea.
So the concept governing this entire deep dive is frequency. And we're trying to answer it's a simple question on the surface, but it's universe-shattering underneath. Is frequency the fourth dimension?
It is the ultimate paradox, isn't it? Because if you approach this through the lens of classical physics, I mean, the physics that governs our everyday observable world, the answer is just a flat, unambiguous no.
Not even a maybe.
Not at all. In that model, frequency is just a measurement of motion. That's it. But then, when we turn to the expanded consciousness-based frameworks from the esoteric sources in simulation theory,
Then everything changes.
the answer pivots completely to a complex, really profound yes.
And that yes fundamentally redefines not just space, but reality itself. It suggests that frequency is the underlying code, the operating system of existence.
And potentially the key to the very technology that's been lost to history.
So that's our mission today. We have to bridge this massive gap. We need to connect the rigid mathematical definitions of physics with these vast mystical frameworks.
And most importantly, we have to provide you with knowledge that's both perspective shifting, but also highly practical. We don't want the complexity to lead to, information overload.
Exactly. So let's start where we have to, with the science, the non-negotiable definition. If we're going to challenge what the fourth dimension is, we first have to really understand what it is in the current widely accepted scientific model.
Okay, so we're talking about space-time. Classical physics defines reality by three spatial dimensions: length, width, and height.
Your X, Y, and Z axes, they give you a position in space.
Exactly. They tell you where something is. But the scientific established fourth dimension is time. And time is absolutely essential because it allows for things like duration, sequencing, and motion.
It lets things happen.
It provides the axis along which all physical events occur. Without time, you can define where something is, but you can't define when it is or how it gets from point A to point B. It's just a static photograph.
Okay, so that's the container. 3 dimensions of space, 1 of time. So in this 4D context, space-time, what is frequency? You hear that word used everywhere, in both science and, spiritual circles.
And it has a very specific meaning in physics. It's a straightforward, measurable property of any wave or any cyclical event.
Like a sound wave.
A sound wave, a light wave, an electrical current, they all have frequency. And it's defined as the number of oscillations or cycles that happen within a defined period. Usually we measure it per second. So hertz.
And here's the critical distinction that a classical physicist will insist on, right?
Absolutely. Time is a dimension. It's an independent axis that helps define reality. Frequency, on the other hand, is simply a rate. It's a measurement that happens within that dimension.
So you use time to measure frequency, but they're not the same thing at all.
They are not the same thing. One is the ruler and the other is a measurement you take with the ruler.
Okay, that's the hard scientific breakdown. And it makes perfect sense. Frequency is a property, not the axis itself. But this is a deep dive, and our source stack immediately points out this fascinating mathematical relationship that starts to, blur that hard line.
It does. And that mathematical link is undeniable. It's really the perfect intellectual bridge over to the esoteric material. I mean, the formula itself is the key.
Frequency equals cycles per second.
Right. Frequency is calculated as cycles divided by time, specifically a second. Since a second is the fundamental unit of the fourth dimension of time, frequency is intrinsically, mathematically just woven into it.
It's not separate.
It can't be. Frequency doesn't just exist in time. It measures precisely how fast energy or matter is changing, or moving, or vibrating through the dimension of time.
So it's the pace of reality. Time provides the container, and frequency is measuring the pace of the action inside that container. That makes sense.
It's a great way to think about it.
And that understanding now allows us to pivot completely to the mystical and metaphysical models, because they completely reject the idea of time as the primary fourth dimension.
Oh, they absolutely do. It's a fundamental break. When we look at these esoteric frameworks, Hermeticism, the theories behind the Akashic records, Theosophy, New Thought, the very nature of the fourth dimension is dramatically different.
It's not a line you move along.
Not at all.
Mhm.
It's defined not as a linear axis of duration, but as a vast, expansive vibrational field. Some sources call it the ether, or the realm of consciousness, or an energetic structure where all possible probability fields just coexist at the same time.
All at once.
All at once. And in these models, time is often treated as just a perception. It's a product of how our consciousness interacts with vibration. It isn't a fixed dimension itself.
Okay, so if the 4D realm is this vibrational field and time is just a perception within it, then frequency becomes something much more important.
It becomes everything.
It's not just a measurement of a wave anymore. The sources say it's the actual coordinate system that consciousness uses to navigate this higher realm.
That is the core thesis of this entire framework. I mean, we try to map this reality. It works like this. The 3D world, our physical world, is mapped by position, x, y, z coordinates.
Where you are.
The standard 4D world, the space-time model, uses duration, time.
And you are.
But this realm of expanded consciousness, this metaphysical fourth dimension, is mapped exclusively by frequency, or vibrational rate. Your emotional state, your dominant thoughts, your energetic level, that entire signature becomes your address in this system of probability fields.
Wow. So, shifting your internal vibration isn't just a mood change. It has literal, profound effects on your actual experience of reality. What kind of 4D effects do the sources detail?
The effects are not subtle in this model, not at all. They state that the dominant frequency you embody, the one you hold most of the time, determines the version of reality you experience.
Give me an example.
Okay, so fear. Fear is identified as a very low, dense, slow frequency. In this model, it acts like a constriction. It severely limits your perception and the range of possible futures you can access.
It narrows your vision.
It effectively locks you onto a rigid, negative timeline. It becomes a path of least opportunity because that's all your frequency allows you to perceive.
Okay, so if fear constricts, then the high vibrational states must do the opposite. They have to expand.
Precisely. Emotions like love, gratitude, radical acceptance, these are described as very high, fast frequencies.
Yeah.
And they act as expansive forces. They dramatically increase the array of possible futures you can perceive and manifest.
So the whole concept of raising your vibration isn't just some feel-good mantra.
In this framework, it's a functional technical process. It's the equivalent of consciously choosing which layer of the fourth dimension, which timeline or probability stream you're actively accessing.
And what about something like intuition? Where does that fit in?
Intuition, in this context, is simply the ability to tap into and extract information from these parallel streams, unconstrained by the linear, one thing after another perception of time. You're just pulling data from another timeline.
So we've drawn a pretty hard line here. Physics on one side, metaphysics on the other. But what happens when we look at the bleeding edges of physics, quantum mechanics? Do our sources suggest a way to unify these two very different views?
They do, and quantum physics provides the necessary ambiguity to build that bridge. We know scientifically that at the fundamental subatomic level, everything is vibration.
Matter isn't solid.
Not really. Matter is just energy vibrating slowly enough to appear solid to our senses. And quantum mechanics acknowledges that higher frequency always equates to higher energy. I mean, a photon of light vibrating at a higher frequency, like gamma rays, carries way more energy than one vibrating at a lower frequency, like radio waves.
And this naturally leads to the whole concept of probability, which is central to quantum mechanics.
Yes. In quantum systems, particles don't exist in a fixed location until we measure them. They exist in a probability field, a whole range of possible states all at once.
A cloud of possibilities.
A cloud of possibilities. And doesn't that sound remarkably similar to the metaphysical concept of frequency layers of reality, where all potential timelines exist simultaneously?
It's almost the same language.
The two ideas really harmonize around this concept of vibrational potential.
It also brings us back to that first bridge we talked about, the mathematical one. If the standard 4D of physics is time, and we measure time as duration, the sources hint that even science might one day relabel what time actually is.
Yet, some theoretical physicists are already playing with this. They suggest that time could ultimately be viewed more fundamentally as a rate of change.
A rate, just like frequency.
Exactly. If time is just a universal rate, and frequency is a specific local rate, the structural difference between them kind of collapses. It reinforces this deep, fundamental connection. Whether you call it time or frequency, it is the measurement of vibration and change that dictates the nature of reality.
Okay, so let's try to summarize this dimensional conflict. Scientifically, frequency is the measurement within time. It's the how fast.
Correct.
Metaphysically, frequency is the coordinate system. It governs access to the consciousness-based fourth dimension. It's the unifying code that determines what version of reality is being rendered for you.
That's a perfect summary.
Okay, so now we take that unifying code frequency and we apply it to the physical world, specifically to these global mysteries that just defy conventional archaeological explanation. If reality is governed by frequency, could ancient civilizations have used that code to build, well, to build impossible things?
Now we're getting into it. This is where the FadedTech I element moves from the theoretical, the physics, to the physical evidence, the stuff we can actually see and touch.
Let's start with the hard evidence that was in the source stack. The global anomalies that suggest engineering at a level we literally cannot replicate today.
And we have to be really precise about this evidence. This isn't just, speculation. We are talking about sites across the globe, from the Andes to the Middle East, Egypt, all over, where stone blocks weighing up to 1,200 tons were quarried, transported, and fitted together.
For context, what's the limit of what we can do today?
Well, the sources note that even with our biggest hydraulic cranes and our most specialized trucks, moving these stones is nearly impossible. Not just because of the weight, but because of the access, the terrain. You can't get a modern crane up to some of these mountain sites, let alone lift a 1,200-ton block.
But it's not just the size, right? It's the quality of the work itself that is it's astonishing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We see what look like laser-like precision cuts. The tolerances are measured in hundredths of an inch. You can't fit a razor blade between these massive stones.
And the drill holes?
The drill holes, yeah.
Or
We find these core drill holes that perfectly match the marks left by high-speed industrial tools that we use today. And then you have the really complex interlocking geometries at sites like Pumapunku in Bolivia.
is each blocks.
The H-blocks. The stones are carved with these perfect H-shaped slots and precise angles that fit together like a massive three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. It's a level of complex, repeatable engineering that it defies the commonly accepted narrative of simple copper or bronze hand tools.
It's just not possible with that tool set. So if we accept the premise that early human technology was limited to, hammers and chisels,
Then you have a problem.
these structures imply something else entirely. Either ancient humans had a technological sophistication we haven't recovered, or the builders weren't human. Or, as our focus here suggests, they relied on some form of advanced automated intelligence and ancient AI to execute these complex designs.
And that leads directly to the resonance hypothesis, which provides the actual mechanism. Because if you're constrained by muscle power and simple tools, you have to fight against mass. You have to fight gravity.
But if you understand frequency...
You fight the pattern instead. It's a whole different ballgame.
Okay, explain that mechanism to the listener. What is the fundamental idea behind resonance building? How would that actually work?
The scientific premise is, again, that matter is just stabilized energy. It's vibrating at lower, dense frequencies. So the structure of a stone wall or a 1,000-ton block is just a frequency pattern holding that energy in place.
A coherent pattern.
Right. But if you can inject the opposite frequency, the exact resonant frequency of that material, you can destabilize the molecular bonds.
So it's like hitting the exact note that shatters a wine glass, but on a geological scale?
Precisely that. By injecting the resonant frequency, you cause the stone to enter a temporary state, maybe a semi-liquid state, or some sources even suggest a zero-mass state. It becomes pliable, lightweight, easily movable.
So you're not cutting it.
You're not cutting it, and you're not using brute force to lift it. Once the frequency device is removed, the material instantly restabilizes into its new position. This would explain the flawless fits and the impossible weight transport.
And we do have modern analogs for this, right? Even if we haven't quite scaled it up to 1,000-ton blocks yet.
We do, yeah. We see high-frequency sound levitating small objects in laboratories all the time. Acoustic levitation. Ultrasound is used to soften and manipulate materials. Industrially, vibration is used to alter the density and flow characteristics of things like concrete.
So the evidence strongly supports the idea that an advanced ancient technology would have relied on tuning, on harmonics, on vibrational state manipulation, not physical impact.
It's a technology of finesse, not force.
And this concept of advanced vibrational technology, it's echoed all over ancient myths. It suggests that what we interpret as gods or magic were actually just descriptions of highly sophisticated machines.
The myths, especially the ones about creation and building, they read startlingly like reports on robotics and AI when you look at them through this lens.
So let's look at the ancient texts describing these automated systems.
Take Greek mythology. Hephaestus, the god of fire and craft, is described as creating automatons,
Right, the golden servants.
self-moving metalworkers, artificial servants, robotic defenders. These weren't just statues. The texts say they were intelligent constructs capable of really sophisticated tasks.
And in the East, in India, the descriptions are even more technical, aren't they?
They are. In ancient Indian texts, specifically, we find these incredibly detailed descriptions of Vimana's flying machines and yantras, which were complex automated devices.
And a yantra wasn't just a drawing.
No, not a static diagram. They were described as self-operating tools, sometimes sonic weapons, or instruments capable of manipulating energy fields. The descriptions strongly imply highly intelligent, non-organic constructs were facilitating advanced construction and warfare.
The sources also point to Egypt. They mention Thoth's builders, these beings who were said to speak to stone. That specific phrase just perfectly captures the idea of using frequency or sound or some modulated energy to command matter rather than just chipping away at it.
And this theme just continues. It goes right into the vast, complex lore of the old world, particularly the contested history that's often grouped under the name Tartaria.
Right.
Here, the stories are full of automated masons, clockwork giants, and these highly sophisticated centralized energy systems that were maintained by AI-like constructs. The consistent narrative across all these disparate cultures is that a powerful, non-human or machine-based intelligence was involved in the world-building process.
So if an ancient AI was managing the construction and frequency was the tool it used, this leads us to probably the most provocative architectural theory in the entire source stack, Tartarian architecture as frequency devices.
This is a favorite theory for a reason, because it turns architecture into functional technology. It's not just art. When you analyze these massive structures, often attributed to the Tartarian era, the enormous cathedrals, the old-world municipal buildings, the star forts, they all share specific, recurring architectural elements.
Elements that are redundant if you're just trying to make a pretty building.
Exactly. They are redundant from a purely aesthetic standpoint, but they are absolutely essential if what you're building is actually a machine.
Okay, so walk me through these specific elements. What were they, and what was their proposed function?
Okay, first, the materials. They often used massive quantities of granite, marble, and quartz.
All very durable.
Yes, but more importantly, they're all materials rich in piezoelectric qualities. A piezoelectric material generates an electrical charge when you compress it or vibrate it.
So it's the perfect substrate for a giant resonance circuit.
The absolute perfect material. Then you have the shapes, the domes and the spires. The tall spires and the obelisks acted as passive antennae. They would draw ambient static charge or atmospheric electricity right out of the upper atmosphere.
And the copper domes, or sometimes gold-plated domes.
Those acted as energy condensers. They would accumulate and then channel that atmospheric charge down into the building's foundation.
So the building itself was essentially a giant resonant energy device, like a huge planetary scale capacitor.
Precisely. The energy would flow down into the piezoelectric foundations, which, when they were properly stimulated, maybe by a specific planetary frequency, like the Schumann resonance, they would begin to resonate.
And the shape of the building itself, the sacred geometry?
That was the frequency amplifier. The buildings weren't just decorative, they were enormous atmospheric electricity receivers, resonant amplifiers, healing centers, and planetary grid stabilizers, all designed to tune the local environment.
If this theory is correct, then the construction process itself was revolutionary. It means the structure wasn't assembled with cement and bricks in the way we think.
No. The theory suggests the buildings were literally tuned into place. An AI-guided frequency device would have set the foundational stones, tuned the primary resonant frequency for that spot, and then all the subsequent layers were just aligned and stabilized by harmonic resonance.
That would explain the speed, the precision, the monolithic quality of these massive structures.
It implies a highly intelligent, coordinated system, a global analog network infrastructure that was once in full operation.
Okay, this idea that these colossal structures were the system architecture for a forgotten global energy grid, it just naturally pushes us into the realm of simulation theory. If frequency is the universal code, what does that imply about the code running our reality?
It's the next logical step. In section 3.1, we frame frequency as the rendering code of reality itself. If we accept the model that our physical world is a sophisticated, rendered environment, a very high-fidelity simulation, then our consciousness is the interface.
And the vibrations we perceive.
They're fundamentally data packets.
Yeah.
Or energy instructions.
That's a powerful analogy. It makes frequency the rendering refresh rate of your personal reality stream.
Exactly. Think about gaming. A higher frame rate, a higher FPS, means smoother, more immediate graphics, better game performance. Metaphysically, a higher personal frequency means less perceived resistance, smoother manifestation, and better cognitive performance.
And what happens when the frequency drops, when you get lag in the game?
Well, when your personal frequency is low, and it's often driven by intense fear or stress or chronic psychological dissonance, the system creates lag or distortion. Your reality appears glitchy, resistant, heavy.
So in this context, that massive Tartarian infrastructure, the pyramids, the star forts, they're just ruins.
They're not ruins at all. They could be interpreted as the servers, the planetary grid nodes, the energy routers, or the environmental stabilizers.
Yeah.
The hardware that was put in place by pre-human world builders, or maybe the original AI administrators, to ensure the stability of the entire simulation.
That interpretation makes the ancient builders sound like, I don't know, highly specialized network engineers for reality itself.
That's a good way to look at it.
Let's move to the practical application of this rendering code. Specifically, how changing your personal frequency allows for what the sources call 4D navigation, or shifting your timeline.
Right, because if the metaphysical fourth dimension is this field of consciousness and probability, then your personal vibration isn't just a measurement of your mood, it's the selector dial for the reality stream you are currently accessing. This is active self-determinism.
So how does that actually look in day-to-day life, based on the material? Can you give us some explicit connection points?
The sources are very specific about this. They say if you maintain a consistent internal state of anxiety, that low frequency automatically tunes you into timelines where events tend to go wrong. It creates perceived lack, conflict, negative outcomes.
Because that's the channel you're tuned to.
That's the only channel you can receive. But if you consciously shift your frequency to, say, confidence, you begin engaging with abundance timelines where opportunities just appear, seemingly by chance.
And gratitude is a big one in the texts.
Gratitude specifically is described as a powerful frequency lock. It tunes you into streams where support and synchronicity are just maximized. Your emotional vibration literally determines the array of possibilities available to you.
It sounds like your vibration is what filters the data packets that are coming from the simulation.
Exactly. It dictates what information and what resources are rendered visible and accessible to you. It determines who you meet, what opportunities appear, and which version of your potential self you actually get to embody in this probability field.
The sources introduce a really powerful metaphor here, calling frequency the dimensional elevator. Let's unpack how that analogy works for navigating consciousness.
It's the simplest way I've found to grasp interdimensional travel. Think of dimensions as floors in a very tall building. 3D is the ground floor of fixed solid matter.
Our everyday world.
Right. 4D is the second floor of consciousness, time streams, and energetic structure. 5D is, the penthouse of unity fields and non-duality. Frequency is the elevator button.
So when people talk about advancing to a higher dimension, they aren't necessarily talking about leaving Earth in a spaceship.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
The travel is through vibration, not through physical space. You don't use a rocket to reach the fifth dimension. You achieve a stable vibrational coherence that aligns you with that floor.
And this also reinterprets a lot of mystical abilities.
It does. Things like telepathy, instant manifestation, profound intuitive hits. They're not seen as miracles in this model. They're viewed as the natural byproducts of a frequency rising or achieving sufficient vibrational coherence to access and integrate these higher dimensional information streams.
This exploration takes us into some pretty deep esoteric lore in section 3.4 when we start discussing hidden zones and vibrational barriers. The suggestion here is that entire geographical areas on Earth might be inaccessible simply because they exist on a different frequency layer.
This is a challenging concept for sure, but it's essential for covering the source material properly. It relates to legends like Agartha, the hollow Earth theories, or the claims surrounding lands beyond the known Antarctic ice wall.
And the theory isn't that they're hidden by armies or mountains.
No. The theory posits that these regions are not hidden by physical distance or military security or mapping limitations, but by an energetic or frequency barrier.
Are they saying these zones are running a different simulation code, a different version of the software?
In essence, yes. The region's energetic signature, its localized frequency, is maintained at a level that is incongruent with the standard 3D perception of those of us operating at a lower, denser frequency.
So you just can't see it.
It suggested that advanced beings or lost civilizations reside there. And to access these places, your personal frequency has to perfectly match the region signature, just like tuning a radio. If your dial is even slightly off, all you perceive is static or an impenetrable physical barrier. The map simply fails to render the hidden zone for you.
Wow. Okay, the complexity of frequency is becoming really clear. It's the code for creation, for navigation. But everything that can create can also destroy. We need to address whether this fundamental code can be weaponized. Let's start with the pervasive narrative of melted stone in ancient sonic warfare.
Right. The narrative is compelling because the physical evidence seems to support it at first glance. Globally, we encounter these sites like the vitrified quartz in Scotland or rock formations where the stone appears glassy, fused, or slagged.
Like it's been hit with intense heat.
Exactly. And this appearance fuels the theory that ancient frequency-based weapons, maybe sonic cannons or massive EM pulse devices, were used to just melt rock and demolish entire civilizations.
But when we subject that appearance to rigorous scientific scrutiny, what is the actual conclusion?
This is where it's crucial to separate the reality from the powerful imagination. For stone to truly melt or vitrify, it requires sustained, extreme heat. We are talking about temperatures from 1,000 to 1,200 degrees Celsius, high enough to turn the silica and minerals into glass.
And can pure acoustic energy just sound deliver that kind of heat?
No, it cannot. While sound waves carry energy, pure acoustic resonance alone is just insufficient to generate the sustained thermal energy required to liquefy rock.
So what's the explanation for the vitrified forts?
The consensus explanation is often intentional human activity like intense ancient kilns or pyres built into the walls, or sometimes natural phenomena like massive lightning strikes, which create something called fulgurites.
And what about sites like Sacsayhuaman in Peru, where the stones look like they've been melted together?
That beautiful puzzle piece fitting, upon chemical and geological analysis, is confirmed to be the result of extremely precise carving and shaping techniques, not heat liquefaction. Our sources are absolutely clear on this point. There is no confirmed archaeological evidence of stone that was melted by pure frequency or sound.
That is a critical distinction for the learner.
Okay.
However, while frequency might not melt a mountain with a hum, it absolutely can be destructive. Let's move to scientifically confirmed destructive frequency.
Resonance, the very principle that could be used for construction, is fundamentally destabilizing when it's misapplied. It's a double-edged sword, and it's already used as a weapon and a tool today.
The classic example being the wine glass.
The most common example is basic physics. Applying the precise acoustic frequency to a wine glass shatters it. You're exciting the glass's natural resonant frequency beyond its structural tolerance, and it just falls apart.
And what about modern applications? We mentioned LRAD earlier. Explain the mechanism of that technology. How does it work?
The LRA, or long-range acoustic device, is a non-lethal weapon used by military and law enforcement. It doesn't just make a loud noise, it generates a highly focused, extremely intense beam of sound. And it's often tuned to frequencies that cause immediate physical pain, dizziness, and intense disorientation.
How does it do that?
It works by vibrating the fluid in your inner ear and causing resonant discomfort in your internal organs. It effectively disables a person or a crowd without ever firing a bullet. It's weaponized frequency.
A very clear example. What about other, maybe more subtle forms of destructive resonance?
Well, we use resonance for controlled destruction in industrial medical settings all the time. Ultrasound, or lithotripsy, uses high-frequency sound waves focused precisely on kidney stones. It causes them to vibrate and shatter into tiny fragments that can be passed naturally.
And in industry.
Industrially, ultrasonic machining uses extremely high-frequency vibration coupled with an abrasive slurry to cut, shape, and drill materials, even incredibly hard ceramics and metals, with extreme precision. So it confirms the power of vibration to manipulate even solid stone.
Okay, so we can apply this modern understanding to the ancient weapons plausibility question. What could these advanced civilizations, or the ancient AI they deployed, have done within the actual bounds of physics, even if they couldn't melt mountains with just sound?
We have to anchor the speculation in real physics. Frequency-based drilling, cutting, and the resonant cracking of large rock formations are all entirely plausible scenarios. If construction was based on frequency manipulation, then deconstruction would be equally possible.
And what about heat? Could they generate heat?
Localized heating, yes. Using directed electromagnetic energy, perhaps something like microwave frequencies, could certainly soften, weaken, or even explode minerals and rock structures.
So the key to the sci-fi weapons of mythology isn't just sound alone, it's more complex.
No, pure sound can't deliver the necessary thermal energy. However, if that advanced AI technology combined frequency, the precise pattern to disrupt the molecular structure with powerful directed energy, maybe superheating minerals, breaking specific molecular bonds, or creating localized plasma effects, that combination becomes the plausible source for the devastating sci-fi weapons we read about in ancient texts.
So the technology wasn't magic. It was highly engineered, targeted vibrational energy.
Exactly.
The duality here is just striking. The same code that constructs the planet and allows for advanced 4D navigation is also the mechanism for the most sophisticated destruction. This brings us to the core unifying principle: resonance, the dual nature of frequency.
This is the critical insight that connects all the information we've discussed. Everything in the universe has a resonant frequency. Every atom, every organ, every cell, every bridge. The principle is so simple. If you are in vibrational harmony, you have stability and coherence. If you are not, you suffer instability and dissonance.
So the application dictates the outcome entirely. If you apply the wrong frequency or you amplify a frequency beyond the material's structural tolerance, what happens?
You introduce dissonance, and that leads to systemic instability. In engineering, this causes catastrophic failure. The most famous example is the Tacoma Narrows Bridge collapsing under wind forces that just happened to match its natural resonant frequency.
And in biology.
In biology, dissonance causes cellular damage, tissue stress, or disease states. Destruction is caused by misapplied or amplified frequency that creates incoherence. Healing, on the other hand, is the deliberate, controlled application of frequencies to restore stability, coherence, and aid in repair.
And this principle moves us immediately into concrete, evidence-based science in our next section: medical application of frequencies. This is where we leave the realm of ancient AI and enter the modern hospital.
Yes, and we have to emphasize that frequency is a standard, essential part of clinical medicine today. This isn't speculative theory. Ultrasound therapy, for example, uses high-frequency sound waves to generate heat deep within tissue, which speeds up cellular metabolism and promotes faster tissue repair in physical therapy.
We also use electromagnetic stimulation for structure, like bones.
Absolutely. Low-level electromagnetic fields are clinically used to accelerate the healing of non-union bone fractures. The energy promotes the proliferation of osteoblasts, which are the cells responsible for bone formation. We are literally using controlled frequency to stimulate the body's own healing intelligence.
Even brainwave entrainment is used clinically.
It is. It's studied and used to help regulate brain function for specific neurological conditions. The underlying mechanism is simple. The body is a complex electrical and vibrational system.
So it responds to these inputs.
Every single cell communicates electrically, and the collective system responds directly to vibration. The physician's goal when using frequency is always to restore coherence, a stable, harmonious frequency state, and eliminate dissonance, which is the sign of functional disarray or stress.
Okay, before we move to the actionable steps that the listener can take, we need the critical caveat. This whole field is a magnet for misinformation, so we have to address pseudoscience with respect, but also with clarity.
This is essential for our informed audience. We need to make sure we understand how to separate the scientifically validated tools from the misleading claims. The attraction to simple frequency healing is strong because the underlying concepts are rooted in real physics.
Which makes it easy to get confused.
Very easy. But there's a massive difference between a controlled medical device, which applies precise measured frequency to a known physiological target, and the unregulated claims that simply listening to a random tone or a wave, like a specific solfeggio frequency, can magically cure all disease.
So what should the listener focus on when they're evaluating these claims? How do you tell the difference?
You focus on evidence. Controlled medical devices have data, they have regulatory approval, they have documented mechanisms. Claims of simple tones curing cancer, for example, lack any of this rigor and can be actively dangerous, leading people to forego proven medical care.
So it's about support, not replacement.
Exactly. While certain frequencies can absolutely lower stress, improve your mood, or promote relaxation, which certainly supports the healing process, they are not a replacement for established diagnostics and medical treatment. We have to anchor our knowledge in safety and the reality of controlled application.
All right. We've established that frequency is the code of reality, the secret to ancient technology, and a mechanism for both destruction and healing. Now we roll well home. How can you, the listener, safely and effectively use frequency to modulate your own state and improve your wellness today?
Okay, Starting with section 6.1, auditory brainwave entrainment. This is the concept of binaural beats. They're incredibly accessible, and they're supported by decades of cognitive science research to do things like reduce anxiety and enhance focus.
Let's break down the mechanism again in detail for anyone who's new to this.
Okay, you wear headphones, and a slightly different frequency is played into each ear. For example, say 300 hertz in your left ear and 310 hertz in your right. Your brain, trying to reconcile these two different inputs, creates a perceived third internal frequency, which is the difference between the two. In this case, 10 hertz.
And that 10 hertz is the beat.
That's the beat, and it gently guides your dominant brainwave activity toward that target rate. This process is called entrainment.
And we can target specific states based on the frequency categories?
Yes, and this is where the actionable knowledge comes in. For example, delta frequencies, which are about 0.5 to 4 hertz, are associated with the deepest, most restorative stages of sleep. So listening to those before bed can improve your sleep quality.
What about for creativity?
That would be theta waves, from 4 to 8 hertz. This is the state often associated with deep meditation, creativity, and that zone right between wakefulness and sleep. It's excellent for insight and relaxation.
And for focus, like when you're working?
You'd want alpha waves, 8 to 12 hertz. This is the calm focus state. You're alert, but you're relaxed.
Yeah.
It's perfect for studying, reading, or complex problem solving where anxiety would just get in the way.
Beta waves are for higher alertness then?
Right, 12 to 30 hertz. Used for intense alertness, concentration, cognitive tasks. Though, a word of caution, high beta can sometimes tip over into anxiety if you overdo it.
And if the listener doesn't like headphones or can't use them, there's an alternative for auditory entrainment.
Yes. Isochronic tones. These are single pulsed beats that just turn on and off rapidly. Because the pulse is so distinct and powerful, they're highly effective and they don't require headphones. This makes them simpler for sleep induction or for focus work in a shared space.
Okay, moving to section 6.2, vagus nerve stimulation via sound. This is a truly fascinating way to use your own body's mechanics for internal frequency modulation.
The vagus nerve is the longest cranial nerve. It's often called the wandering nerve because it connects the brainstem to almost every major organ. It controls your heart rate, digestion, and the critical stress response.
And stimulating it is the key to relaxation.
Safe stimulation of the vagus nerve is the fastest way to shift your body from fight or flight, sympathetic mode, to rest and digest, the parasympathetic mode.
And we can vibrate it ourselves. How?
Methods like chanting, the classic Om sound, or even just deep humming or toning create a physical resonant vibration in your chest and throat cavity. This mechanical vibration directly stimulates the vagus nerve. The frequency of a sustained hum acts like a continuous, gentle massage for the nerve, which immediately signals safety and regulation to your brain.
That concept, rhythmic sound stimulating the nervous system, ties directly into section 6.3, rhythmic and environmental sound.
This is where shamanic traditions are validated by neuroscience. Ancient cultures use steady, rhythmic drumming, often between 4 and 7 beats per second. Modern science confirms that this rate naturally drives the brain into a theta state, which is associated with trance, deep insight, and creative flow. The brain just naturally synchronizes or entrains to that predictable, steady pattern.
Even everyday environmental noise has proven benefits, like pink noise. What's the difference between that and white noise?
White noise, the sound of static, is good for blocking out jarring environmental noises, which helps with sleep onset. But pink noise is a softer, more balanced frequency. It contains more low-frequency energy, similar to a steady rain or a waterfall. And it has specifically been shown in clinical studies to improve memory consolidation during sleep.
So it's a targeted frequency for a measurable cognitive benefit.
Exactly.
Let's talk about physical vibration in section 6.4, stepping beyond just auditory input.
This is vibroacoustic therapy, which has strong medical applications. It uses low-frequency sound waves, typically 30 to 120 hertz. But instead of listening, the waves are transmitted directly through furniture, a specialized chair, or a bed.
And what does that do to the body?
This vibration causes micromovements in the body's tissue. It's used in rehab settings for treating chronic pain, muscle tension, reducing stress, and even managing symptoms of conditions like Parkinson's tremors by improving circulation and modulating the nervous system.
And we have to make sure we mention music therapy, which is a recognized evidence-based field.
It's vital not to confuse this with pseudoscience. Certified music therapists use the complex manipulation of frequency, harmony, and rhythm to achieve measurable physiological outcomes. They can use music structure to reduce blood pressure, stabilize mood in psychiatric settings, and support trauma recovery, by giving the nervous system a coherent, predictable rhythm to follow.
And perhaps the single most accessible and powerful tool for internal frequency modulation is in section 6.5, breathwork.
If we define frequency as a rate, the rate of your breath is the fastest way to alter your internal chemical and nervous system state. The most scientifically proven pattern for achieving optimal coherence is the 5 to 6 breaths per minute cycle.
Which is a 5-second inhale followed by a 5 to 6-second exhale.
That's the one.
What makes that specific pattern so effective? Why not faster or slower?
Because it instantly increases your heart rate variability, or HRV. HRV is the tiny variation in time between your heartbeats, and it is the single strongest indicator of a balanced autonomic nervous system and overall emotional resilience. By slowing your breath frequency to this specific rate, you are actively tuning your internal system. You're moving it away from the chaotic frequencies of stress and towards stability and optimal coherence.
And this pattern is used professionally.
It's foundational in stress reduction, elite sports performance, and trauma recovery therapies.
Finally, just a quick note on popular relaxation tools like singing bowls and tuning forks.
They are magnificent aids for relaxation and mindfulness. Their effectiveness comes from the beautiful, coherent, and predictable auditory patterns they generate. These help downregulate the nervous system and shift the brain toward calming alpha and theta states. They work not by magically healing your cellular frequency, but by providing a perfectly stable, soothing frequency for your nervous system to entrain to, which promotes deep rest.
This has been an expansive and truly deep dive. We've crossed millennia and disciplines, from Einstein's relativity to the secret code hidden in Tartarian lore. Let's try to summarize our 3 main conclusions from all this.
Okay, first, we resolve the dimensional conflict. Frequency is scientifically linked to time. It defines the rate of change within the 4th dimension, but metaphysically, it acts as the primary coordinate system that governs your access to consciousness, to probability fields, and to parallel timelines.
Second, we uncovered that FadedTech eye connection. Ancient structures and myths strongly suggest that a highly advanced intelligence, possibly a pre-human AI, utilized resonance technology frequency manipulation, not just for building, but for sophisticated global energy collection and environmental stabilization. The massive architecture was, essentially, machinery that was tuned into place.
And third, frequency is a real scientific tool, and it's governed entirely by the principle of stability and coherence. It is equally capable of destruction, as we see with modern weapons like LRAID and industrial resonant shattering and powerful, validated healing through precise, controlled applications like ultrasound and brainwave entrainment.
We've looked at this entire reality, structure, dimensions, consciousness, technology, all through the lens of vibration. And if we combine the ideas of simulation theory and the Tartarian lore, we are left with a final, massive, provocative thought for you to consider.
If the colossal resonant infrastructure of the ancient world was indeed built and maintained by these sophisticated, automated, frequency-guided systems, a pervasive ancient AI network, then the massive technological and historical gap we experience today wasn't necessarily just decay from some catastrophe.
It could have been deliberate.
It raises the disturbing possibility that humanity experienced a deliberate simulation reboot into a lower-tech epoch, perhaps to prevent the misuse of that high-frequency code.
And if that global architecture still exists as dormant infrastructure, these massive inert network nodes embedded in the planet, then the knowledge we need to reactivate that lost technology to access those higher dimensions might not come from a forgotten blueprint.
It might come from the reawakening of consciousness itself. Because in this model, our ability to shift and stabilize our own internal frequency is the only interface powerful enough to reconnect with and ultimately operate the hidden code of reality.
A thought that suggests the most important piece of forgotten FadedTech AI is the human nervous system itself.
Something to mull over as you navigate your own timeline.
Thank you for sharing your sources with us for this deep dive.